Alabama woman who was wanted for a knife and machete attack on a man who owed her money has turned herself in, while her son still remains at large. The incident occurred at 9 p.m. on Saturday night on the 8th of May, located at Jones Street in Daphne, when a male victim was assaulted by 36-year-old Tamekia Williams and a 22-year-old son Jalen Williams. The victim was held against his will at knife point for several hours at the Williams' home. The victim had been at the property doing some yard work, working off a debt he incurred when Tamekia bonded him out of jail a few months earlier on drug offences. When he finished the work, they told him to come inside. For the next few hours they held him at knife point. He tried to escape, and when he got to the door, they began stabbing him. Jalen stabbed the victim several times with the butcher's knife, and Tamekia slashed him across the arm with a machete. He managed to escape from the home and ran for his life screaming, without shoes on, to a nearby restaurant. His shirt was bloody and torn, he had shorts on, and he was covered in blood from top to toe. He explained to the restaurant owner that he just escaped from a home and he was being held captive and the authorities were contacted. He was in a bad state and he was transported to the University Hospital where he was treated for his injuries. After examining the injuries and recovering blood and physical evidence at the Joneses Street home, police said they had no reason to doubt their victim's story. Investigators said that all parties have prior arrest history in Daphne, and the debt owed was related to that history. Police say that Tamekia recently turned herself in, but refuses to say anything regarding the whereabouts of her son. The victim has since been released from hospital and is lucky to be alive. Tamekia and Jalen both face charges of second-degree assault and unlawful imprisonment. However, Jalen still remains at large. On the 14th of May, Valley, Alabama resident Hubert Timothy Sprayberry was found guilty of murdering 72-year-old James Edmund Clark. On the 19th of December 2019, James was reported missing after not being seen for about 3 weeks. After investigators obtained search warrants for James, they arrived at Hubert's property on Sunday night, on the 29th of December. The investigators found a concrete well, which was covered by a concrete lid. When the lid was removed, there was an overwhelming stench. As they covered their noses to look inside the well, a pair of shoes were seen floating on top of the water. A hook was lowered into the well, which first hooked onto 2 cinder blocks linked by a rope. The second time the hook was lowered, it hooked onto James's decomposed body. The body had 22 stab wounds, as well as 3 gunshot wounds to the head. After Hubert killed him, he stripped him bare of all of his clothes, tied a plastic bag around his head to make sure he was dead, before tying 1 cinder block around his neck and another around his feet and throwing him headfirst into the well. It took several agencies over 2.5 hours to retrieve all of the remains. DNA evidence positively identified the body as James. Detectives were also able to match the rope and duct tape found in Hubert's van, which matched those to bind James's body. Further evidence shows that Hubert was packing up his belongings and getting ready to leave town before the cops could find out what he was hiding. His belongings were packed into boxes and bags, and the mattress in his room was gone. Investigators discovered the charred remains of a mattress in a fire pit outside. Hubert, who was 58 at the time of the offence, was arrested and charged with murder just after midnight that same night. After the jury found Hubert guilty, he now awaits sentencing and will most likely spend the rest of his days behind bars. Hubert and James were acquaintances and neighbours, and to this day, the motive of the attack still remains unknown.